Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. So, as if the other day, the murder of Irina Zarutska wasn't bad enough, they murdered Charlie Kirk in cold blood. And we all saw it. And let me just say, I had some ugly cries today. Surprised me, because it's not like I followed Charlie Kirk. I wasn't subscribed to his channel. My intake of Charlie Kirk's content was, the stuff you get clipped. With the occasional, I think I watched a whole stream of his on election night. Well, I was flipping back and forth, but I went to school. The only semester I did of college was at that school where he was murdered today. And I know that area. And I watched it, and the people look like the people I grew up with. A bunch of Mormons came out to see him. And he had Mormon vibes, And it's like, you can't help but think that that was intentional. Because I've had my beef with the Mormon church. There's no new news there. I left the Mormon church because, they were too Mormon for me. I didn't like the judgmentals, Because I also didn't want to stop doing the things that they considered to be bad. Weren't very many things, but, Anyway, when the video came out of the guy laying on the roof, that was in a building on top of a roof that, by my own memory, I might be just doing this, but my own memory is that he was laying down on the roof, probably directly above where I sat in a classroom, because I remembered that building, which is where the auto shop was, and I had an auto shop class, and I had the auto shop down on one floor, and then they had a classroom that kind of looked out over the auto shop. And he was on that part of the roof, if my calculations were correctly. And I don't know, maybe I invented the memory just on the spot, but I kind of sat in that corner, which would have been the southwest corner of the room. And to think, all those years ago, that one day the guy that would murder and change the direction of the country would just be right there, I promoted shows there. My band played there a lot. Played a Christmas show there. I made a flyer for it. The Mistletoe Jam, 91 or 92, I think. Mistletoe Jam, get it? Haha, I made a poster for it. Welcome to Jingle Hell. And I made this long intro, and those are my people. That's my upbringing, And to think that that's where they murdered him. And let me tell you something. As much as I got away from Utah and, almost the thing that, I don't know what leftism and intellectualism does, is it kind of makes you think you're better than, Oh, I'm better than these simple religious folk. They're coney. We used to disparagingly call Provo Happy Valley. And it was one of those kinds of things where people just kind of adopted it, but it was meant as an insult, all those fucking happy, shiny people, and as if there's no depth to a person that's happy, and friendly. But that's what Mormons are, whether you agree with their doctrine or not, and this or that, the culture is a giving, welcoming culture for the most part. There are bastardizations of it, and people that don't do it well, they get judgmental and whatever. They don't know how to do the judgment thing, So it can feel oppressive, and they're nervous about certain influences. And, I was always fighting when I was a cons promoter. I was always fighting in Provo. City Hall. Went to so many City Hall meetings in Orem and Provo. Actually, the shooting was actually in Orem. but I consider it Provo because it's right off the freeway exit that you take to go up University Avenue to BYU. Or what is it, Freedom Boulevard maybe? I can't remember which one goes which way, but, it was where I lived down there. That's what those are my people. And whatever you say about it, the intent is good. The teachings of the Mormon Church, the teachings of Christianity are to teach people to be good to one another, to not be judgmental, to do nice things for people, to share the good news of the gospel to other people. When I went on my Mormon mission, paid for it myself, and with my companions and my other fellow missionaries, we might have been young, dumb doofuses, but we did it because we thought that we were helping. The intent was to do good, and that's the Provo intent, was to do good. I got off track, got full of myself and thought I was smarter than everybody and all that other shit, and look where that's gotten me. But the reason why they targeted Charlie Kirk there is because that's what was in their target. That's what they hate. That's the war. The war is on wholesomeness, on goodness itself. And Charlie Kirk represented that. He represented a turning point. That's the whole, it was such a good name that he picked for his organization. A turning point, to turn away from evil and back to wholesomeness, to family values, to good things, to edifying things, not destructive things, And for as much as you don't like it we don't like what he says about gays or trans, it's just like, the intent is not to be destructive. It's to say, don't be destructive. Don't destroy your body. I'm here to help you. Don't do that. Don't put tattoos on because you're already beautiful. Don't dye your hair pink because your hair is already beautiful the way God made you. That's the intent. And of course, as a young person, you're like, fuck this. I want to dress however I want. I want to do whatever I want. It's my body. It's my choice, blah, blah, blah. And also some of that stuff is well-intended too. Independence, blah, blah, blah. Don't be so judgmental. But that's what was in the target. The target was goodness and wholesomeness. And I'm sorry, but you're not going to get me to believe that this was a lone gunman. No, There was no lone gunman here. You don't have two other people, one with a pellet gun, one guy saying, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me, to distract and make everybody think, oh, that's the guy. Well, it gives cover for the other guy, the real shooter, to run away. You don't have that without planned, organized thing. I don't know who did it. Same people that killed JFK, the deep state, could be Israel. I don't know. I'm not in there. A lot of signs point to that, though. This whole, I've seen so many Jews going, Dennis Prager, as a Jew, like, what do you mean as a Jew? Why are you making this about, I saw a number of Jewish people today on Twitter and everything showing Charlie Kirk holding an Israel flag, and they put Israel in there or Hamas in there. I'm like, are you seriously trying to make his death about Israel or Hamas or something? It's like, how fucking narcissistic do you have to be? Or tone deaf? I don't know, man. And the bottom line is, like, no matter how hard they say Judeo-Christian values, it's not true, okay? Jewish Zionists and Christian Zionists are mortal enemies. The fact that they're pretending that they like Christians is insane. It doesn't conform with the doctrine, If you say you're a Christian Zionist, you're basically saying to them, Jesus is your king, and that's why I'm a Zionist. Because I believe that Jesus is going to return to this piece of land that you're taking care of temporarily until your knee bends and you accept Christ. But you will. because Jesus is the king. You know, that's like the closest enemy you can get. They're more at odds than a completely different religion, because you're literally claiming the same shit, the same spot of land. And, and Jesus, according to Jewish scripture, is literally boiling in his own excrement and semen. It's a direct quote. There's a tremendous, Judaism is founded upon being anti-Christ. And I'm not trying to invoke the Antichrist, the devil, or anything like that. I'm just saying it's literally anti-Christian. The mission is anti-Christian because Jesus, according to them, is a fraud. He's not the Messiah. The Messiah has yet to come. They're still waiting for him. They're Armageddonists. That's what the Mormon Zionists and the Christian Zionists have in common. They both believe in the end times predictions. And I'm over here trying to say, fucking slow down. You don't have to do this. This stuff in this book, you don't have to check it off like a checklist. You don't have to. You don't have to. You can stop. You don't need to do it. But they are dead set. That's why I was dead set against Mitt Romney. I didn't want to have an Armageddonist with the nuclear codes because they get a boner for seeing the revelations come true. They see them as a checklist, and somebody in Israel is following the checklist. The red heifer, all the signs of the times. All these things seem to be just going in the direction of, yes, the whole world will turn against us. It's like this death wish. It's a death cult. Because that has to happen before the Messiah can return. And according to Christian Zionists, before Jesus can return and start the millennium, 1,000 years of peace. All this has to happen. So it's like a grocery list. Got to get the eggs, got to get all the ingredients, got to get the wheat to make this cake, And that's what they're doing. It's dead set. And Charlie Kirk, he was pro-Israel. I read some things on X today where somebody was saying that he had expressed that he was afraid that if he turned against Israel, they'd kill him. Rational fear, by the way. That's totally rational. Israel is a very powerful, very well-equipped, very smart, very devious state. They have demonstrated many times that they can and will destroy their enemies. So taking out a Christian Zionist, but why would they do that? I'm in this group, and I said, I don't know. It looks kind of like a Mossad kind of a thing to me, with the white rabbit, red herring, shoot me. It looks organized to me. And who benefits from the U.S. Civil War? I don't know, Israel. For all the religious reasons, but also just regular practical political reasons. If there's a U.S. Civil War, how can you be, if you can get the conservatives, the hallmark of Israel is getting other people to fight your wars. So if you've got leftists that are pro-Hamas and anti-Israel, and you can galvanize the right against the left, just practically speaking, if the left is even though you are on the left and you created the left and you occupy both sides, if you can get the right fighting and killing the left, and the left here is all busy fighting the right rather than, protesting Hamas, they could go do their Greater Israel project over there. So anyway, I don't know. I don't have the information. But quite frankly, the way Trump's been acting, people act like, oh, he's protecting the people on the Epstein list. I'm going, no, he's actually protecting us from what Israel can do. When you're dealing with a formidable enemy like Israel has nukes, but more than that, they have smarts, they have brains, they have the banks, they have all the communication systems. They're embedded in every level of our society. And it's very clear that many, not all of them, but many of them hold loyalties to Israel first. So they're essentially embedded spies or embedded insurance programs that U.S. will do what Israel wants, because if they don't, the ramifications can be huge. Who knows what they are? But Lord knows they have nukes. Lord knows we saw what they did with the pagers. How do we know that my phone that I'm holding right now can't blow up at they've demonstrated over and over again that they are completely willing to just, for example, the pagers, exploding pagers. And those are in countries where they're not really super established, whereas here they're completely established. So it's completely rational to imagine that they have hundreds of versions of dead man switches. That's what I see. When I see Trump being very cautious and careful with how he deals with Netanyahu, even though there's plenty of evidence to say that he doesn't like Netanyahu, but he flatters him the way he flatters who else? Kim Jong-il, Putin, Chinese, dangerous men. And that's how you deal with dangerous men. You don't poke and prod them. You go about it gingerly, carefully, unless you're a reckless motherfucker. And he's not. But anyway, I'm fucking angry. I'm radicalized now. To see Charlie Kirk's life snuffed out, whoever did it, even if it was a lone gunman, which I doesn't seem like it to me, it was still a person radicalized by probably a group with an ism behind it. And behind all the isms, you'll ultimately find somebody practicing Judaism. Because all these Judaism becomes Marxism, becomes globalism, becomes all these different things. And the point is to have somebody else sitting at the top of the ism managing the division. Whoa. I can hear people, well, why are you blaming everything on Jews? I'm not blaming everything on Jews. I'm saying that Judaism is a blueprint for all this. It's a plan. It's a concept. It's an idea. It's well written. It's studied by many people. It's believed by many people. And it's frankly evil. Like Islam is evil. And there's other ideologies that are completely evil. But these are the most pressing ones right now. Because these are the ones that are predicted to be the last days. These are the people that have the boners for Armageddonism. End times. Red heifer. Here are the signs. The rebuilding of the temple. And Charlie Kirk, even though he pretended, again, it's just a fiction that Jews and Christians share values. They have, obviously, everybody likes ice cream. Or maybe not, I don't know. Maybe some Jews are lactose intolerant, I don't know. But again, it's not a racial thing, as far as I can tell. I don't know, maybe. I've never looked through a microscope. Maybe in the DNA you do find the Torah. Maybe there's the Talmuds in your DNA. I doubt it. It seems to be completely opt-in. You either decide you're going to go along with it, or you decide you're not going to. There's a reason why they call Utah Zion. Charlie Kirk was killed in where? Zion. Happy Valley. Murdered, snuffed out. And I'm radical now. I'm so radical. Let me tell you how radical I am. I'm so radical. I'm so done with democracy right now. I'm so done with giving demons a vote, especially when they can just change votes and, rig elections, and they can just vote away your stuff, vote away your property, vote away your freedom. No. I kind of want Trump to just be the authoritarian that they call him. Because so far he hasn't been. He's been playing by the rules. He's been allowing all these courts to block him. Then he's patient, doesn't appeal, waits here, goes to the Supreme Court. Then they say, no, you can't do that. And then another court says, well, oh, we don't know what you said. We're going to do it again. And then the Supreme Court has to go, we just fucking told you can't do that. You need to fucking obey us. Oh, okay, well. And then they just ignore it again. And you got all these rogue activist judges out there, and they're in a system where you have these rules where you can't do that, and you have to obey the law, otherwise we have constitutional crisis, and who knows how many really good people are on the Supreme Court. How can you trust Amy Coney Barrett? She's got a black kid. And I'm sorry, but a white lady that adopts a black kid, to me, red flag. That's somebody that wants to be seen as a hero, in my view. Sorry, I'm not going to mask that anymore. But anytime you see a white family adopting black kids, you just got to go, yeah, I think I know what that's about. It's a response, too. It's a response to being called or perceived as a racist. It's like, but what if I adopt this black kid? Then I'm off the hook, right? No, you're not. And no offense to the kid, but yeah. So you don't know, and she's always waffling. It's a pretty good court, but they're not always good. They're allowing these things to happen. I want Trump to just go, no, you know what? Every single leftist organization, I want him to designate as a terrorist organization. I just want him to do it. And if he has to create a constitutional crisis, then so be it. I want him to go in and find these rogue judges and just arrest them. What? You can't do that. Yes, you can. You undermine the United States of America. You are a rogue. You're committing treason. You're doing these things, X, Y, Z. I don't care. They make up fucking crimes. There's, show me the person, I'll show you the crime. That leftist strategy, the thing that they used on him, the things that they used on the J6ers, the things that they used at the parents protesting in schools, all the tactics they used against Christian conservatives, Trump's not doing that. He's showing restraint. And I don't want him to. I don't want him to show restraint. I want him to do what they did. I want him to weaponize the government against them. People go, oh, but then it's always like that. It's already like that. You can't have tit for tat. If you don't answer them, you lose. And I was watching this video about the theory of game theory, tit for tat, how to, go watch it, look it up, game theory, Veritasium. I don't recommend Veritasium very often, but they did a pretty good job of explaining game theory. But the only road to peace is tit for tat, with the occasional forgiveness. If you show forgiveness and you use the tit for tat method, that's the way to go to peace, So we got to answer this. He's got to answer the way they treated him, the impeachments. I'm so radical right now that if Trump decided coming up on the midterms that he was seeing too much potential for cheating, because they're going to. The left is going to try to cheat, no matter what. They already are trying to do it. I'm glad that he's finally doing that with Texas, redrawing the maps. The left has been doing that for years. Every blue state has been gerrymandered beyond comprehension, beyond belief. They've been doing it. But the Republicans are always, oh, no, we can't do that. We can't do tit for tat. That's how, an eye for an eye, the whole world goes blind. Blah, 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 turn the other cheek. Fuck you. No. Tit for a motherfucking tat. Give them 2 tits for a tat. How about that? Make it stronger. These people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, they need to be punched. Violence, they commit violence. Now, do you go out and you shoot one of their pundits or whatever? You could, but it's more responsible to do it where it's happening. The people that literally promoted the violence, that would be a good target. Who are the pundits that promoted the violence, who are the ones that were calling him a dictator, which is a call for violence, saying, we're going to punch him in the face. You know, if something happened to one of them in response to this, it would be rational. And just for anybody, YouTube or Facebook, I'm not calling for that, but it would be rational. It would be understandable, you know? If these fucking violent people laughing about Charlie Kirk, if they had their jobs taken away from them and what happened, what they would do, what they do to people, would they dox people, get them fired, threaten them, violently attack them? It's time to do it back. You know? Tit for tat. I don't think the right wing's going to do it, because the right wing's more like, I'll wait till it comes to my doorstep. Then game's on. As long as it's not on my doorstep, yeah, the right wing's probably not going to do anything. That's the part that's infuriating. You know, there won't be a violent response to this, because the only people that use violence is the left. It's like clockwork. As soon as Trump gets in office, you got 4 years of riots, looting, burning, screeching, protests, violence, you know? And then people go, oh, the world's gone to shit because the right's in control. No, because when the right's in control, the left goes nuts and creates havoc. And for some fucking dumb reason, people just go, oh, if we vote for you, will you stop? Yes, we will. Just vote for us and you'll be able to sleep at night. For a while, until we get upset about something else. They have to be dealt with. We can't. The only thing I can hope, it's just so fucking maddening that they murdered Charlie Kirk, and I don't want to have to put a silver lining on it, but what I see happening is the same way, like when Israel thinks it can just kill a couple Palestinians, as if that just wipes them off. It's like, no. Every time you kill somebody and you have 10 witnesses, you can't kill the witnesses, because somebody will see you do that. You're radicalizing everybody else. So every time you kill one, you make 10. Do I think there's 10 Charlie Kirks out there? Probably not. You know, he's a unique individual, but somebody's going to step up. And he was a hero to a lot of young kids. And you don't think that this is going to galvanize them? It's not going to scare them off. No. That's not how it is to be a kid. We got a bunch of kids right now that are fucking pissed. And they're not going to forget it. They're not going to forget seeing a good man that they admired. A man that brought people together to talk about things. That's his brand. Pick up the mic, I'll talk to you about anything. And I'll be fair. You're going to get your butt kicked because I'm a good debater, you know? But it's going to be friendly. That's who they murdered. And these kids know that. They know that they murdered a good man. His fans know. The people that are cheering on the murder, they don't know about Charlie Kirk. They've just seen clips. They haven't watched his whole live streams. They see a clip of him saying something, putting a trans person in their place, and they get fucking freaked out, you know? But they don't watch the whole thing. They don't know. But his fans, they know. They know that he's a good guy. They know that he was a lovely guy, a fair guy. That's why they loved him. You know, it's almost kind of rare in these days that you have heroes that are actually good people. You know, when you got all these LeBron James and these rock stars that are derelicts and stuff, to have a good person be a role model and a hero to young people, that's crazy. And that's, of course, why they killed him. They can't have that. They can't have an effective, you know, somebody who's good with the youth. They need to corrupt the youth. They need to get the youth to chop off their dicks, slice off their tits, take drugs, have abortions, be in total fear of the future, the climate. They need everybody getting stupid Greta Thunberg haircuts. That's what they need. They don't need strong, independent, white Christian kids deciding that they want to get married early and have a family. Are you kidding me? Judaists have been working on this anti-Christian, anti-white program for the last 50 years. They don't need to have it all undone by some fat-headed guy with a big brain and a lot of patience, a little bit of a facial tic, charm, tall guy, not afraid to be a little bit pudgy, human, accessible, literally accessible to the point that he got shot in the neck. You can't have that. So they murdered him. And now I'm radicalized, as if I wasn't already. But if I was a 5 on the radicalization scale 2 days ago before Irina Zarutska and Charlie Kirk, I'm a fucking 11 now. It was all I could do to just stay home. And I called some old friends from high school and my old mission. And it's weird because even those guys in Utah, they're in Utah, my little brother too, they feel isolated in Utah because this wokeism has infected the Mormon church. And let me tell you, Mormon wokesters are worse because, they were saying, well, you must have it all around you. Yeah, I am surrounded by woke as fucking retards, but there's so many of them, they assume that there isn't anybody that disagrees with them, so they don't have to sit there and talk about it as much. But if you're a woke Mormon, you have to be loud and angry about it because you're surrounded by mostly people that aren't you. So the worst, most vile woke people are in Utah. I hate to say that some of my family members are that way. I mean, they're not the trans kind, but kind of. It's almost like you'll never find anything worse than a liberal Mormon. And there's a lot of them now. If you're going to be liberal, just fucking stop being Mormon. How about that? But trying to be liberal and Mormon, so it's like the cloak of righteousness. Ugh. Like two versions of self-righteousness. You got the religious self-righteousness and then also the fucking political self-righteousness. Unbearable. Absolutely unbearable. But anyway, like my younger brother today said that when he heard that Charlie Kirk was coming to Utah, he was nervous. He said, oh no, I hope things... So there was a sense in the air because these Mormon wokesters, these ex-Mormon and Mormon wokesters are the worst. I sent texts to my siblings that are woke today. I didn't get not a single response back. Well, I don't, I'm not too surprised. I was calling them to repentance. I was literally saying, you must stop supporting this evil. These people will castrate your children in a second. As soon as you let them go into their classrooms, they will plant ideas into their minds that they shouldn't be alive, that they're breathers and eaters, and that they're ruining the planet, and that they should mutilate their own genitals and not know what gender they are. And these siblings of mine, they're just gladly doing it, handing them over to the state. Mask up. Got 2 sisters that are nurses. Lord knows how many people they jabbed and put on remdesivir and put on ventilators during COVID, just basically murdering people. No remorse, no apologies. TikTok dance. Proud to get my jab. Vote Kamala. It's like, what can you do but call them to repentance? And I did. I don't care. I did it. I'm the older brother. I did my job, I'm sorry that I'm more Mormon than the Mormons, but it's weirdly turned out that way. I left the Mormon church because they were too Mormon, and now that all these years later, I'm more Mormon than the Mormons are. You know, I look at the southern Utah. I was talking about this with my other younger brother today. It's just like these farming communities where they're kind of like offshoots of the Mormon church and they do things the old way. Some of them are actually polygamous, Just like, I can kind of respect that. Farming, having their own printing up their own money, being off grid, not, gesticulating every time the government. The idea that the Mormons are now bowing down and doing whatever the government says them is pathetic. Think about during COVID, just they cancel their church services. Like, okay, what? Really? You don't have faith in God? It's all science now, whatever the state says. What about this whole idea about faith in Jesus? Jesus isn't sending a plague. Just really disappointing. And I'm not even a typical believer, like I said. As far as I'm concerned, reality is God. Reality. Everything that exists and that existed before us. That's what's real is what's God, But they hate that. They hate it. They resent it. They're upset with it. So they have to murder it, And whether it's Israel or just some angry dude that was inspired because of one of the isms that ultimately is a tentacle of Israel, it's like the same. And you have to deal with it either way. I see people saying, don't do it, they're just trying to get us to divide. And I'm like, really? We're already divided. We're divided, okay? We are divided. When I found out Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I was arguing with somebody on Facebook, a so-called fellow conservative, that was talking about, the media's manipulating us with the Irina Zarutska. Like, no, they're not. The guy that murdered her is manipulating us. And the people that support it and laughed at it and set him free 14 times. God, so much to talk about. I don't know, but the rage I was feeling earlier, I'm sure you probably were too, but now I'm just kind of babbling. But I'm just saying, and I'm kind of making this recording and kind of hoping that maybe some of my siblings that are in this evil ideology of wokeness, of resentful hatred, you gotta find the light, man. You gotta stop. You gotta fight before it's too late, because they will castrate your children. They will turn your children against you. That is the entire goal. Your job is to protect your children. Your job is not to turn your children over to the state for indoctrination, to be mutilated in their minds and in their bodies. You need to stop protecting these evil actors, So that's my personal message to my siblings who ignore me because of me sending messages like that. Repent. Say you're sorry. Get out the phone book. Find out how many people you killed during COVID because you were following the orders of the drug cartel and demanding that people push unknown ingredients into their arms just because the drug companies said so. They told your doctors to do it, and you're the nurses, so you did what the doctor said. With no study. We all know you didn't study because nobody did. It wasn't available. The inserts were blank. You didn't know. You just simply decided to side with the government, not your families, not your friends, not your communities, but with the drug dealers and the government. And you need to repent for that. You need to make amends. You need to compensate. You need to show contrition. You need to say you're sorry. For you, for your kids, for your community. Mostly for you, though, so you can fucking free yourself from the denial. Because that denial ain't getting you anywhere. You will never be free as long as you stay in that denial. Anyway, things are going to be okay on the other side. We're going to win this war because we're fighting evil, and evil can't win. It can't win. We can't let the people chopping off the dicks and slicing off the tits and preaching doomsday, Armageddon, end of the world, sky is falling, climate alarmists. We can't let the fearmongers win. We can't, and we're not going to. Thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song to totally waste